You see a guy like Kyle Juszczyk who tries to show you every day all the different things that he can do, and other fullbacks around the league that seems like they've kind of embraced that more. You've been around for a while. You've seen that position kind of evolve. How much do you think versatility and being able to do that, especially at that position, is kind of key to keeping it alive?
Well, for us, it really is, because the game is, as everybody wants to take the game and become a spread, and that's been the trend over time. And so then you can stay with the I formation and do the things, but being able to break out of the I and use your fullback in those other ways allows you to kind of do some of the spread things, some of the things that other teams are doing without a fullback, and yet still put the fullback in the backfield. This thing's shaking, and put you in a position that you can run some of the traditional plays that you'd use a traditional fullback on. There's a lot of advantages to having a fullback. And so putting him in the backfield there and being able to do the things we do with him or the other tight ends, there's an advantage to how you can cut the defense, different things you can do. When you're a one-back offense, you really don't, there's a lot of, you don't have a lot of leverage and things like that. That's why the quarterback runs. And the zone read stuff becomes such a big thing, because you regain an advantage that you don't have with one back in the backfield. So, yeah, that advantage that Kyle gives us, and that it lets you do a little bit of everything, and that's really, really cool. And that does, I think the kid, I know that I've talked to the guys in Miami, the guy they have there, Engel, whatever his name is, he does a heck of a job doing some of the same things. He's probably not quite as versatile athletically, but he still does a lot of those same things, and then is still a good fullback.
It was more like a tipping point of when that position had to evolve in a way, because it used to just be like, the sledgehammers going through.
Well, I think what happened was I ran into it when I was in Tampa. There was a really good guy. In fact, with Frank Wycheck's passing the Music City Miracle, one of the pieces of that was Lorenzo Neal. And Lorenzo was with us in Tampa. And Lorenzo was the definition of leverage. You say, how do you get leverage? Well, you'd be about 5'9" and weigh about 240 pounds and be built like a fire hydrant. You have leverage on everybody you're going to block. Well, Zoe was that. But the problem is that even in Tampa, where we weren't going to throw the ball a lot back in the day, he played 15 snaps. You're paying him X amount of dollars to play that limited number of snaps, and so all of a sudden you're like, it's not worth it. And then you want to throw the ball a little bit more, do different things with different positions. So I think that if you're going to be on the roster, you can't have somebody that's that limited. So having that be more versatile, it more fits the salary, everything that goes into it.
Can you also just execute more blocking combinations with the fullback on the field?
There's more things available. There really are. There's just more. And moving tight ends, it's all the same thing, that H-back type position. But you're having guys that can, you just can cut the defense in different ways. Things that you see sometimes we have these plays that, you just see like it just kind of opens up because we've cut it. We build a wall this way, we knock things out this way, but that allows with fullback. When it's one back, you're always, and we've had our most productive play is a one back play. The fullback might be up on the line of scrimmage, but we don't have the cut of the defense. We don't have angles on, and it's been a productive play for us this season, more productive than ever. And it's still probably our best play. But those plays do. All of a sudden, you're doing this, all of a sudden, bam, bam, you cut the defense with the fullback. It gives you some more flexibility.
Prominent downfield blocking by wide receivers in this last game, as there has been throughout the season. I'm just wondering how Kyle, how you, or how Leonard kind of highlights that. Is that something that after a game like that is sort of underscored?
You caught me in a minute with Leonard. I call him Hank. It's Hank. I didn't think of him. I remember Hank. Hank has a hard hat in his meeting room, and if they get a good block or hard, they get to sign the hard hat. So like Juwan's on there a bunch this year. They all do. I'll go back when I first started working with Kyle and Mike Shanahan in Washington. Every Friday we had what we called the run meeting, and what you did is you took Thursday's team run period, and it started with Alex Gibbs in Denver, and he'd go in there, and it would be his chance to coach all 11 guys in the run game. And that's when he would, for Alex, and I can't speak for him, he rest in peace, but he would get to rip everybody in the room. Not that he just rip his lineman, now he'd get to chew out the receivers, chew out the quarterback for not carrying out the fake, and it became his chance to kind of bring everybody together in the run game. And so I get the meeting, and I'm like, am I going to yell at Santana Moss? Am I doing, all these guys? So I'm running the meeting, and Coach Shanahan, as he did, he recorded all the meetings, so he could actually punch in on a screen and watch everybody's meetings. He could go from meeting room to meeting room and listen on a video screen. So he's listening to my meeting, and all of a sudden the door flies open, and he comes in from his office. I was in the middle of trying to run this meeting, like I didn't know how Alex did it, and he's like, "Hey, Coach, this Santana, that's unacceptable. You got to get your ass in there and block that guy. And coach, you got to coach him harder to go do it." I'm like, oh crap, here we go. So I'm like, I got to figure out how to do this meeting, because there was a very high. This was a roundabout way to tell you the story, but this guy, they had a high expectation level for receiver blocking, And from that point forward, now I said, I can't do it that way. So what I would do when Santana missed his block, I started going back and find other film clips of game tape where Santana did. Hey, Santana, hey, man, look at this. Look at a great job. And then this, hey, Tanner, we know you can do better than that in this play. Same thing here. You can show Debo doing things excellent, or Ayuk and those guys. And so it's the expectation, like we spoke earlier about the expectation of the building. When we run the football, it's all 11 guys. The quarterback caring not to fake, the receivers doing their part. That expectation level was set a long time ago, and it's all of us. Hank has to stay on, and we all do. And it's not acceptable to not do your job in the running game because it's a huge part of what we do, and that's why, knock on wood, we've had some success here running the football. It's all 11 doing it.
Much is made of the Niners and pre-snap motion and other teams, the Dolphins. I mean, go down the list, and Kyle's talked about, how it can't put a defense in a bind and they have to adjust. Why doesn't, because there are, some teams that really don't use it that much. Why is that? Like, when you see the effect it can have, why would teams say, no, that's not for us?
Well, some systems, you've heard quarterbacks mic'd up, right? Making mic points, mic 52, mic, and the more you move. Peyton Manning was when they beat Rex Ryan's defense in a championship game. I think it was when the Jets made it the one year and the Colts went. I think they lost it anyway. He went the whole second half and said, not only do I not want to move, I want to be in the same formation every single snap because I'll be able to know exactly what they're doing. If I just stay in this formation, I have all the tells so I can put us in the right play. So any motion would make it really hard for him to audible or check with me or do plays like that. Other teams have to have a mic point. Everything's moving, right? So you have to move and get set, and it's impossible to make the identification. So, we've built a system through the quarterback doesn't have to do all that. And so the plays, and we've gone through the years, it's evolved. I mean, because I was with Kyle in 2010 and then was apart for a little bit and came back together. It's just evolved. And how we identify people, we came up with a way in 2010. Some of that has changed with motion and movement. We've had to come up with different words as to how we do it to fix things when you have jet sweeps going this way and that way to tell the center how to identify it properly. But because teams they're predicated on, we want the quarterback, everybody gets set, quarterback says we're going here, everybody goes here, it sets the table cleanly. We're not always clean. It's not always perfect, but there's a trade-off. Neither are they, and it's just a real challenge. And that challenge it's real. I mean, Jake Brendel is challenged, and as were the centers before him in the systems to really get up there and make sure that everybody's going in the right direction. They do a heck of a job with it. We got to still do better because there is, and sometimes we're like, we have all these moving pieces, and you're like, oh wow, we haven't seen that before. And you got to kind of, start back and say, maybe we have to adjust how we're doing this, that, or the other thing. It's all the nickel defense being played to base now. There's always a challenge. As defenses evolve and we evolve with the moving pieces, it's a chess match always.
What do you think of Ben Barch so far, and where does he fit best on your line if you had to project?
Ben's doing a great job. I was a real good friend of mine, George Warhop, who was the line coach in Jacksonville, had him. And actually, when we played Jacksonville, George and I got together for a breakfast, and we just talked. And he's not in coaching this year. Hopefully gets back. He should get back in next year. He's a great coach. And George said, hey, man, they just traded for Ezra Cleveland. The Jacksonville Jaguars did, and they bumped my guy Benny Barch down to practice squad. He said, if you get a chance to pick him up, he'd be a really, really good guy to pick up. And so I watched the tape, and he was really good. They had a knee injury. And so when you watch this year's tape, you're like, I said, George, he's struggling, man. But when you went back and watched the year before, and some guys, it takes a guy a year after the knee, it takes another year. And so when you watch him, and I got him here, he fits our system. He's quick, guard, probably not yet anchoring well enough at guard. You're a little bit concerned as anchor and pass pro. That's what concerned me on the Jacksonville tape. But at center, he can play center as well. Those interior three positions, man, he's got the quickness, he's got the length, he's got some size. And as he gets into our system, we keep working with him. I think he's got a real good fit for our inside three and gives us a chance to another good quality player inside. I really like the guy.
Steve was just talking about how Kyle was talking about they're 3-10, but please don't, to the message to the team, do not look at 3-10. These guys can actually, play. They're on the, I guess, upswing. Does that resonate with you from what you see?
Yeah, records really, winning and losing games comes down to a lot of things that happen in a game. Turnovers, and you make a kick, you don't make a kick, things like that. You look at the team, you look at the players that your guys are going against. You look at the side of the ball you're going against, and you evaluate those players, you evaluate the scheme, and you look at what the challenges and what you have to do every week. And it's just, you get so, I think, ground down in the minutia, and you try to just stay in that world of, hey, we got to take care of this, where I got to do in my job, that the big picture thing just really doesn't weigh that heavily on what their record is or where they're headed or what they're doing. And so, there's tons of stories about past teams I've been on where you have, you've been in a situation where your record isn't quite as good, and shoot, these games become like playoff games for you at the end of the season. Your team's building towards something next season, and so on and so forth. But all that stuff really doesn't matter. What we got to do is take care of business, what our job is every single play, and do the best that we can, and that's where the focus is.
Game, Brock said he noticed that Jamal Adams was flat-footed, and the fact that he recognized that before the play on Devo's touchdown. Is that something that you don't see as often in the young quarterback?
Every guy, you're looking at something different every single play. So, he's an experienced thrower. He's played quarter. We've talked about what a good quarterback he's been through the years as far as he's played the position. He understands the position. And these are things, who knows when he picked that up during the course of his career. You never know. Every guy's different. Sometimes you're amazed when a guy comes in from college football and the things he knows. And then you're amazed sometimes with things they don't know, and you're having to teach them that. So you never know. He might have picked that up in, sophomore year of high school football, noticing flat-footed defenders and things like that. Or he might have just, picked it up recently, hearing it from somebody else talk. So you just don't know. You'd have to ask him that. But, he does continue to do really, really good things, and things that seem to put him, a little probably ahead of the curve for where a guy with his experience and age is.
Is the culture here made things self-sustaining sort of for a coach? Do you not have to spend a lot of time, or I got to get this guy going today, because they're looking at their teammates to get going?
Well, I think it's both things. I think that you always go back to, we've talked about, I know John and Kyle have talked about a lot, the way we have decided to draft players. Heck, brought players in, they haven't worked out, they've worked out. But the type of player that we bring in traditionally has been the kind of guy that we feel really good about, and a guy that is self-motivated and does fit what our quote-unquote culture is. I go back to, it really does start with how the expectation that Kyle sets for everybody. And that expectation, it's in every part of the building, whether it be in the on-field, the off-field, the way people work, all those things. There's just an expectation level that it's just, there's not much variance or give in it. And so that it kind of then becomes, self-sustaining to a degree, but we have to stay on it every single day. It's not like I don't come to work. I know that if I'm not doing something right, I'm going to hear about it. If one of my players isn't doing something right, if there's a drop-off during practice, they're going to hear about it from me. They're going to hear about it from other players. So there is that, they work with each other. We've got a good veteran team that way. But it starts at the top, and it really does. Kyle is just very demanding of all of us, and that expectation level is why it is the way it is. And then you bring in players that like that. So then they thrive in that environment. So then they do keep it going.